Hello, welcome to natemareflix. I am Nate. You are you, and today I have a Scream franchise ranking for you that I think you will vehemently disagree with. So before you light my comment section on fire and you get too salty and too butthurt, let me explain something. I love this franchise. I like all of the entry. I think Scream is a scenario in which it's oops, all bangers, not a miss in the bunch. They are all a lot of good slasher fun. But we got to establish a pecking order. So we got to get into the nitty gritty, and that's what we are going to do. So by all means, let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. Give me your rankings down below. But this right here, this is my ranking. In dead last place, it is Scream 4. Yes, I know, it is a fan favorite. And like I said, I have fun with Scream 4. But ultimately, I find it to be frivolous fun. This movie did nothing to further the arcs or the development of any of its key characters, did nothing to propel the franchise further. In fact, it kind of got it stuck in the mud, which is not great considering they were coming off of a prolonged hiatus and then they immediately re-entered a hiatus until Scream 5 last year. I mean, when you think about key Scream watershed moments, how many come compliments of Scream 4? You see what I'm saying? For me, the highlights of the movie are Olivia's butchering in her bedroom to where she gets disemboweled, gutted like a fish, thrown about her bedroom until she has repainted the walls with her blood. That's gnarly and it's vicious, and it was necessary because people who like to detract from the Scream franchise say that it is a slasher that has no creative fun kills or gore, that it is all stabs. This was way more than a stab. The other key moment for me is Emma Roberts committing to the reveal of Jill as the Ghostface mastermind. Yes, Charlie was involved, but he's not really that great. And people always point to him doing so much in The Mask, but it's like I can't really connect the dude's personality. He doesn't really entertain me once he is revealed, so it's kind of hard to really latch on to that guy. But I can latch on to Emma Roberts as Jill, as she just commits to being this insane, bratty, mean girl who would rather kill her friends, her mother, and maim herself in hilarious, darkly comedic fashion than to have to live in the shadow of a relative for one more day. That's how motivated and fame hungry she was, and that spoke to me. Now, other problems for the movie is that it just looks god awful. And yes, this was a choice by Wes Craven, and he's made so many wonderful choices in his career, but this was not one of them. Yes, other horror movies in this era looked awful, looked like polished turds. But by making your movie look like that and making fun of those movies, your movie just looks like a polished turd. So newer generations of Scream fans, as time marches on, will have no sort of historical context. Will just be like, this movie looks awful. Why does it look so bad? Did they not know how to operate cameras and lights? What was happening? It's just going to get lost in the sauce. Not the best thing they ever did in the Scream franchise. Dewey gets a little bit wasted. He is the heart and soul of that original group. They don't have a whole lot for him to do here. He gets put on the back burner, doesn't have any really funny, memorable lines. He's just kind of stuck in this bland love triangle between himself, Gale Weathers, and Deputy Hicks. Doesn't have a whole lot to offer you with Sidney. Think of all of the wonderful Sidney Prescott moments that have happened in this franchise. How many truly happen in Scream 4? Do you get where I'm coming from yet? Now in 5th place, it's one most of you hate the most, and I used to be right there with you, but I have really softened on Scream 3. Now, I talked about Scream 4 not doing anything for arcs. Can't say that for Scream 3. When this movie opens, Sidney Prescott has been so marred by tragedy and she has experienced so much loss that she does not feel she can just go out and live amongst the rest of the world. She lives in isolation. Seldom anybody actually knows where she is at. And she's doing this remote job where she does the best she can to help other embattled women, to be an ally to them, which is a nice touch, and that's why we love Sidney. But it's awful that she's in these circumstances. But through this movie's ride and through her journey, by the end, she can look over her shoulder, not in concern, but to see that her door is wide open to the outside world, and she can just not give an F and go join her friends on the couch for a movie night. There's something awesome in that. There's something sweet and beautiful in that, and there's something unique to Scream in that you don't get in other slasher franchises. So that's wonderful. I also love seeing her really spar with her half-brother, Roman Bridger. And I used to despise this guy. I used to think that by including him in Scream 3 and what they do with this plot, it kind of muddied the waters and went back and it tampered with the original. And we know from setting yourself, you don't fuck with the original. But now I think you kind of got to give the guy kudos. I think it's kind of cool that he wasn't just a director of a stab film. He was a director of the real life Woodsboro events and everything that's going on in Hollywood in this film. And then he's just such an even opposition for Sydney because they share their genes. And man, can you tell as they match wits and physicality. Every time it looks like one of them has the advantage, the other one then takes the advantage, has a trick up their sleeve. Sometimes they match trickery, and it's just a sight to see. It is so much fun. It is one of the best final showdowns in the entire franchise. The commentary on sequels, on trilogies, all of that fantastic stuff. And the movie could have used more bloodshed. It could have used more viciousness, but you understand why, because this movie came out right after Columbine. They couldn't necessarily go there, but I think they went enough other places that were fun and fresh, campy, good, zany time type of stuff that it's still redeeming and it's still fun. And all the kudos and props in the world to Wes Craven, may he rest in peace, for calling out his producer, Harvey Weinstein. The Weinsteins produced this movie, and in this movie, there is a seedy, despicable, disgusting producer who made his bones on low-budget horror movies and then preyed upon his young actresses and destroyed their careers and destroyed their lives and held his power over them. Who do you think we were talking about in this? That's just a rebel, punk rock, badass move by Wes Craven and co. And they did it right underneath the Weinstein's nose and got them to sign off on it, and that is baller as fuck. In fourth place, it's the new kid on the block. It is Scream 6. And I would not have believed it would have been this low if you had told me so, like a third to 2/3 of the way through the movie. I've only seen it once. I can't wait to rewatch it, but I have to say, really let down by the conclusion. Really let down by some of the choices in the end. This movie has several plot holes that are glaring, and I have to say, the Ghostface in this movie, when the mask is on, when he's just running around New York City and popping up places and gutting people and throwing them about and being a mean SOB, it is maybe one of the most imposing and threatening Ghostface we've ever seen, and I freaking love this villain. But once he is unmasked and you no longer see the ghost face, you see the human face, it all just falls apart. The train goes off the track. Dermot Mulroney cannot deliver camp, went way overboard to where it just had a cringe factor about it. And then you have Jack Champion just kind of trying to redo Richie, but to a lesser effect, where he just feels like a less charming, less engaging Richie, and you just don't really give an F. The sister, not much to really latch onto there, to where I want to rank the Ghostface killers, but I'm like, how do I even talk about her? How do I talk about her contributions? How do I talk about her brother? It's just such a major letdown because so much in this movie was awesome. This is the biggest Scream has ever felt. The scale and the budget felt earned. There's so much happening. It's such a high-octane thrill ride, so much palpable tension throughout, and so much new freshness to it because they literally say, fuck the ideas and fuck your love for movies. And that really opens up all sorts of avenues for you to venture down. And they did really good with it. So many great new things happen in this movie. So many gory, awesome kills. There's a dude stuffed into a refrigerator and he's been decapitated and had his limbs hacked off. I've never seen anything like that. So as awesome as that is, I love Scream for being clever and smart and witty. And so the amount of logical fallacy that I have to go along with is just a major problem for me. But shout out to Melissa Barrera, because man, did she take a lot of hate after Scream 5. And she was a little wooden in moments of Scream 5, I will admit. But she was an undeniable force in this movie. And she shows herself to be worthy of taking the baton from Neve Campbell and being this franchise's new final girl. I love seeing her go ballistic and lose her shit and just dump all of her pain and rage on her adversaries. She's awesome. I think you could already make an argument she may be one of the top 10 final girls of all time. Have I said too much? Am I talking crazy? I may be, but that's just how I'm feeling coming out of Scream 6. So I know it's low. I really liked it, but damn, the ghost faces, they let me down. The reveals let me down. Some of the plot twists, just a little too Scooby-Doo, if you ask me. All right, receiving the bronze medal, the third place Scream film is Scream 5. Now, I think a lot of people are probably going to put Scream 6 above Scream 5, but I don't think Scream 5 has the logical issues that Scream 6 does. And I know a lot of people are going to immediately type in and be like, what about Amber killing Dewey? That's clearly not Amber. How could she have done that? Well, we may find out later on that it's not, a la Roman Bridger being involved in earlier entries, and we didn't have a clue until we were told so. So we'll see what happens there. It feels like they are masterminding some sort of reveal that's going to come in the next movie in Scream 7. So we will see. That may be rectified. But even then, a lot of really awesome kills in this movie. Like when Wes gets stabbed through the neck and you see that knife and you see the skin kind of getting taut and starting to have this extra tension, it's like, oh God, what's going to happen? Am I going to see like veins and blood just pop out? Is he about to just take that knife and flick the wrist and just flay open that neck? There's all sorts of great nastiness in this movie. not a lot of chase scenes, but when they do it well. I enjoyed the opening of the movie, and I really enjoyed the way they created this alchemy of old and new, to where they took the legacy characters, they took what we know with the franchise, and they kind of set things up to go in a new direction as they let them bounce off of one another. I thought it was ingenious. I really love Chad. I love Mindy. I love Tara and Sam. I love the relationship of those two sisters, and I find it very compelling that it introduced us to not just like one key final girl, but two, because we're kind of systematically getting rid of the legacy players. So now Gail is going to become expendable. We have Tara, we have Sam, we have Mindy, we have Chad. They know the rules. They're us. They are us through and through. This is such a topical modern film, and its meta stuff was fantastic for me because I do YouTube videos. I engage with other movie fans and Scream fans. I get bizarre, crazy comments. I go on Reddit. I see vitriol. I see hatred, and this movie touched on that and even involved James and Chelsea from Dead Meat. I thought that was fantastic. I enjoy Richie. I enjoy Amber. I love some of the smart retorts that Sydney got in this movie, and that she came in like an absolute badass and wasn't having any of it from Richie. I really think the movie's strong. And when I first watched it, I was on a high, and I thought I may have just been on adrenaline and just happy to have Scream back. But I gotta tell you, since that movie came out, I've watched it 4 or 5 times. So that speaks to the rewatchability factor of the film, and that is why it is so high for me. All right, your silver medalist, the runner-up, it is Scream 2, which I would argue is one of the best slasher sequels of all time. I would argue it's one of the best horror sequels of all time. It is a movie I've watched countless times, and I actually think that my delight in it has not been watered down or lost any effect. It's only garnered. My appreciation for this movie only gets better with time. As I start to pick up on more of the themes and more of the character arcs, and I see this journey that Gail and Dewey and Sydney are going on. I love the opening of this movie in the movie theater. I love the way they just dissect and analyze sequels. I love the discussions of sequels in this movie. I love the way this movie takes on some of those tropes, but also explores different ideas or goes out to subvert certain expectations. This was really the franchise still being at its peak, really still going for the zenith of things. Everything was just so taut and dialed in. The performances are fantastic, and Scream 2 sneakily has some of the best kills in the entire franchise. When you look at the bathroom kill in the theater, you look at Jada Pinkett Smith being just absolutely skewered inside of a busy movie theater as a bunch of Ghostfaces unknowingly watch and root it on. Just root for her to be stabbed in front of them, to watch the life drain out of her because they think it's some sort of publicity stunt. That is a great moment, and it raises a lot of questions about us as horror fans. So much of this movie is just so thematically rich and intelligent. Wes Craven studied a lot of Greek theater, and he also studied a lot of philosophy, and I think that kind of comes through in this film. And of course, well, I love Mickey. I gotta say, one of the best, most underrated Ghostfaces is Mickey Altieri, and his scene in the classroom, bouncing off of Randy, to where they're going back and forth about sequels. That is one of the best moments in the entire franchise. That is like a perfect scene because there's foreshadowing going on as Randy's used to being the big fish in his small town who knows more about movies than anybody, but he's now in college and in a bigger pool, if you will, and there is a bigger fish who has him bested. You're going to see that play out, and they're sort of saying movie quotes, and Randy says the quote wrong, Mickey has it right, and Mickey, of course, gets the better of him when he pulls him in that van and kills our boy, and that hurt like all hell when I saw that. That broke my heart. But just like in Scream 5 when Dewey died, and it made me freaking well up with tears in the theater, that's another reason why Scream 5 is so high on my list. When Randy died, damn, did it freaking hurt, because that was my boy. That's who I saw myself in the first movie, and they went for it. So the franchise still felt like it had stakes, and anybody could get got. We didn't get that in every movie in the franchise, but we sure got it in Scream 2. So much to love in Scream 2, so much to heap praise on, but I've rambled for long enough. Number 1, the original. It's Scream. You don't fuck with the original. Sidney Prescott said that, and she's right. You know why? Because it's a classic. It's my favorite horror movie of all time. Do I need to say more? All right, I will. The best final girl is presented to us via this movie. The best opening in a horror movie, for my money, comes to us via this movie. One of the best killer reveals of all time comes to us via this movie. It broke my heart. I was enraged when I showed this movie to my younger cousin, and she was like, oh yeah, I know who the killers are going to be. I saw it on TikTok. Social media, you're freaking killing me. I mean, what a twist. I remember experiencing that as a kid and just being riveted, just being clutched by this movie and be like, oh, I'm going to rewatch this thing 1,000 times. And I did. I still watch this thing like every year. I can just recite it verbatim. I'm going to be quoting Scream, specifically Matthew Lillard as Stu, when I'm an old, senile, elderly fella, and I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore because it's just in my DNA at this point. That's how much Scream has imprinted on me. That's how much it means to me. It is a fun ride that presents so much. It was so original and fresh at its time, and horror owes a debt to this film, to Kevin Williamson, to Wes Craven. Thank God for them. Thank God for what they did for the genre, what they did for slashers, and what they did for the movie fan like you and me. So there you go. There's my ranking. There's my list. There's how I see the Scream franchise. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit like, hit subscribe, yada, yada, yada. One more thing though. Something else you have to do. Please go have yourself a great day. I'm Nate for natemareflix saying that's a wrap.